the first chapter. We started that recording. So, in case if you want to review that, you can get back to that. And in the last class, we started this chapter, which is data and information. I discussed in detail with you that what do you understand by data, what do you understand by information. Then we discussed relatively regarding the sources of the data, like if it's a direct source or if it's an indirect source, what are the advantages and disadvantages. And I also discussed with you that, for example, if I give you an example of any data source, so how can you differentiate into between that? So we have discussed this since our last class, and today we are going to discuss regarding 1.2, that is your quality of information. Okay, so let's start this. 1.2, I'm starting this, and 1.2 is basically regarding the quality of your information. You need to understand one thing right here, that right here now I'm referring to your information, and information means that anything that is valuable, as we discussed into our last class. Information is like anything that makes a meaning or that makes a sense of something. Like, for example, if you have an address and if you have a product code, so it becomes an information. We have discussed this quite into detail, and I hope I do not need to get into the depth of this. So uh, now we are going to discuss here that certainly how can I know that the information that I have collected is much accurate, or how can I justify the quality of to that. So first of all, let's discuss that what do you understand by the quality of something. Like for example, if I say that I have any food item, so basically whenever I eat something, I often review that as well. And if I'm reviewing it, that means that I am justifying the quality of that information. Like I'm just stating that how much it is feeling likely to me, like how good it is. So quality means something that makes that quality, like for example, if I have a dish, and that dish is made up of many ingredients, so that dish is basically based on the ingredients I added onto that, and that is going to determine its quality. Similarly, if I'm discussing with you regarding the information, so information is determined by its quality. That means that how much accurate or how much I can rely onto that. Like, for example, you can find many information throughout internet, and that information relatively could be any aspect you wish to research. But one thing you need to focus right here is that you need to look forward its quality. Quality means that even if you can trust that piece of information or not, even if you can see that how much accurate that information or not. So this quality measurement is not only specific when it comes to an information, it also helps you whenever relatively you are measuring a quality of something. Like, for example, right here you can see that I have a product. This is a product. So even before I start using that, first of all, I just go forward that what is the quality of that, even if it is worthy for me or not. Similarly, if you have any form of information, you need to discuss, you need to work on its quality. So 1.2 we are going to discuss in today's class, which is my quality of information. The quality of information can be determined by a number of attributes. Definitely, it can be determined by many attributes. The first attribute that I have right here is your accuracy. So when I'm referring to your accuracy part, I'm referring to see that how much accurate that piece of information is. So let's start this accuracy. So information can definitely be considered good or not. Information can even be considered good or not, accurate or not, useful or not, but we need to measure that. So the first point that we are going to discuss right here is that we need to understand that how much accurate our piece of information is. Like your data must be your data must be accurate in order if it needs to be considered good. Like for example, imagine that you need to check at the airport 45 minutes before the flight leaves. So you turn up at 18:10 for a 19:05 flight only to find that you were supposed to check before at the airport. So this is like I'm working on to the accuracy of that information. For example, I sent you a text message, and into that text message, I said that we are going to have our class at 8 of Pakistani time and 6 relatively of your time region. So the class is going to happen at the same time, but I'm also going to discuss the accuracy of that. I'm not going to say like for example, if the class is at 9, I'm not going to transmit or communicate to you that the class is at 8 because this is going to be an inaccurate information. So information should be accurate so that you can work onto that and you can make your decisions onto that, and it should not be inaccurate. For example, if there is any product that is for $60 to $70 and by mistakenly you add an extra zero, so it becomes an inaccurate product. So there can be different sort of examples of accurate and inaccurate information. Accurate information is to make sure that I am working on its best, and inaccurate comes into point. Like for example, you make a spelling mistake, you make any misplaced character. So all of this comes into this category. So this is what, in terms of that, we have discussed in your accuracy part, that your data could be accurate or your data certainly can be inaccurate. The next thing that we are going to discuss right here is going to be your relevance. That how much relevant is your information. Like for example, if I'm teaching right here computer A-level IT, I'm only going to discuss the things and knowledge that is relevant to you. I'm not going to discuss anything that is not relevant to you or that is not likely to be it. So when it comes to relevance, I should be making it so important that your information is onto at its purpose. It should be having like, it's good to have a more amount of information or having additional information, but you know what? If I'm working on a specific domain, and if I have certainly a large amount of information, so it becomes quite difficult for me to filter that out. So your information should be as short as possible, as unique as possible, and as relevant as possible. Like you should not be talking about all of the things. You should be only focusing on what is required. So information must be relevant to its purpose. And certainly, as we discussed in the accuracy part, your information can be relevant as well, and similarly your information can be irrelevant as well. And just in case if it is relevant, that means that that information is quite important for me, that is also accurate, that is relevant for me. But just in case if it is irrelevant, that means that that is not needed for me. So this is not what that we are going to refer. So some examples of irrelevant information can be being given a bus timetable when you want to catch a train. Yes, definitely. If you want to catch a train, why would you even follow a timetable of a bus? You are being retold the rental price of a car when you want to purchase a car. So see, these are quite differences in your relevance as well. So relevance is one of the most important aspect as well. I hope you do not have any queries. Just in case if you have any, feel free to ask. The third area that we are going to discuss right here is going to be the age. And information must be kept up to date before it is being used. Like for example, if right now I'm teaching you A level IT 9626, that means that I am working onto the information that is accurate, that is relevant, and that is up to date. Age means that the latest date on which information is updated. Like for example, if today I'm teaching you, that means that I'm following the syllabus and I'm following the books of 2024. because you are going to be appearing in October, November 2024. I'm not following the syllabus or the books of 2020 or 2021 because that is not accurate for me, that is not relevant for me, and that is not updated for me as well. So just in case if you want to have your information, it must be kept up to date if it is useful. If it is an older information, then it is most likely to be outdated and it's definitely going to make a no use for you. Like some examples of an outdated information could be the number of residents in a town based on consensus from 211, but 500 new homes have been built in the area since 2024. So you see that while I'm working onto a project, but I'm supposed to look at the accurate uh, data or the latest data or the up-to-date data. But if I'm going to take into account the previous data, so this is not going to be the case. This is going to be an false information. So this is it for your in age, and age means that you must be having an up-to-date data, and you may have old dated data, but this is not what you require. The fourth thing that we are going to discuss is the level of detail. Now, in terms of level of details, as earlier discussed right here, that whenever I'm working onto a project, like for example, I have asked you that you want to research onto a project or research on some number of students that are aged between 10 till 15. So what you are going to do? Are you going to cater the whole of the age bracket, or are you going to cater only the age bracket of the students that are aged from 11 to 15? Definitely, you are going to refine your research. Definitely, you are going to specify your research. That means that you are going to only focus on what is it required. You are not requested to go into the depth. You are not requested to go into the detail of something that is not required. So when it comes to a level of detail, you should be making sure that you have the right amount of information for it to be a good quality. It is also possible to have either too little or too much information provided, but if definitely, as I discussed right here, that if there is a lot of information, then it becomes a quite difficult for you to extract that information, or if you want to make your conclusions, or if you want to make your consensus. So it is not like something that you should be having a more amount of information or should be having a lesser amount of information. You should be applying a mediocre level approach and only assess only what is needed. Like, for example, a person orders a pizza. They ask for a large pepperoni to be delivered, but they forgot to say what type of base they wanted and where it should be delivered. So that means that the level of detail is not complete right here. The fourth area that we are going to discuss is going to be your completeness. That means that how much complete your information is. And similarly, if I say that on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8 o'clock, I have my class. But I have not justified that the class is of which subject, AS, A2, O levels. So that means that whenever you are working onto an information and you want to engage the quality of that, you also have to declare that even if your information is complete or not, it has to be complete so that it's quite easy for you to transmit. Like all information that is required must be provided in the order for it to be in the good quality. Completeness, it should be in the order so that it is in a good quality. Like, for example, a person has booked their car and for a service over the phone, the mechanic or the garage tells them the name of the street, but it doesn't give them a booking number. So your information should be complete as possible as well. So till now, do you have any confusion in this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? In this 5 stages, should I continue?
Yes, sir. Everything is clear.
Yes.
Everything is clear, so you can continue.
Okay, okay. Perfect, perfect. Now we are moving on to 1.3, that is your encryption. And let's discuss the encryption part. 1.3 is your encryption. So the basic idea of encryption is to convert your data into a form or into a format that is only and only understandable by the person whom the data was sent. Like encryption is basically a form of security method, and with the help of encryption, I make my data meaningless to those whom the data is not intended to. Like for example, I said that 1, 2, 3, 4 is the password if you want to enter into my class. But the problem is that if I share it across the internet, it is going to be quite become unsecure for me. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to encrypt it into a form that is not uh, readable by anyone. And if I'm going to encrypt it, this is going to be into a form like this, into any other language. And if I'm going to send it, that means that the person whom the data was sent, only he has the ability to decrypt that data, which means that he has the ability to convert this raw form of data back into this form. So this is basically used to for safety of communication, so that no one gets my information. So this is the reason that I work with the encryption. So one specific type of encoding is encryption. Encoding basically means that I am converting my piece of data into another form, into another version, or I am encrypting that data so that it is only understandable by the person whom it was intended to. Like for example, scrambling the data, moving the characters here and there. So this is when it comes to your encryption. The basic definition of encryption is, let me write right here as well, that scrambling data or making the data meaningful to the person whom it was intended to, or making the data unreasonable or unmeaningful for those whom the data is not intended for. Like for example, if there is a user and that user is providing you with a password, and that password is happy one. So the point is that if you are going to share it across internet, one thing you need to understand that right here when I'm talking about internet, that means I'm talking about the World Wide Web. That means that this is a global connection and there are millions of users present right here. So it makes it definitely insecure. But to save this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply some sort of encryption into that. And if when I'm going to encrypt this, so this data which was happy one, this is going to be certainly into any other form, such as like this. Like this is an example. This is going to be your password into an encrypted form. And just in case when it reaches your user B, so that user is going to decrypt that password to have that exact information. So then your user is going to have the same password as happy one, but only the data to whom it was sent for only have the authority to decrypt that. This is your encryption. Like you are moving the data here and there, you are scrambling it. So do you have any confusion in this concept?
No, sir.
Okay, so already discussed with you in terms of encryption. Encryption is when the data is scrambled, so data can be encrypted when it is stored on the disk or other storage media. It can be encrypted when it is sent across a network, such as a local area network, such as a LAN, such as internet, etc. One more thing is that now I'm not sure that if you have this exact knowledge or not, but I'm building some of your knowledge as well. Like uh, now into my lectures, if I'm going to refer something as an internet, you need to understand that internet means that it is it means interconnected networks. And what is a network? When a computer connects with another computer, it forms a network. And when millions of networks connect with each other, they form an internet. Similarly, if we are discussing something related to LAN, if we are discussing something related to LAN, so LAN basically stands for local area network. And LAN is basically something that is geographically in a smaller area geographically in a smaller area, and if I'm discussing something related to when, that means wide area network, and wide area network is something that is geographically larger. So for example, if right now here I'm talking with some examples of internet connection. So for example, if it is going to be a small state, if it's going to be a home, if it's going to be a building, anything that is smaller in size, such as your home, such as your building, such as your street. So the internet facility that is situated here, that is going to be considered as a LAN, because LAN is always situated in smaller areas. Whereas if I talk about wide area network, so this means that it is geographically larger in size. So in when it comes your cities, it comes your towns, it comes your regions as well. So uh, right now here, this is an example that whenever I am sharing some resources across a network, what is a network? I've just explained right now that when one computer connects with when another computer, they forms a network. So whenever you are sending or transmitting data over a network, or whenever you are transmitting some piece of information over a local area network, encryption is important. Why it is important? Because it stores your sensitive data. Encryption is important when sending or storing sensitive data such as personal data or company sales file, because it makes your data secure. I can write here as well that encryption is important for sending and receiving confidential information. Your confidential information such as your bank accounts, credit cards, debit card, all of the information. And you already know that what encryption do, it makes it unmeaningful, it makes the words change. So this is why it is used, and this is why this is important as well. So, with the help of encryption, first of all, it is important because it is used in storing and sensitive information. The second point that I can consider in terms of encryption, I can write that uh, data being sent across a network, like if I'm using this encryption, that means that your data cannot be intercepted by hacker. And interception means like in this diagram, if there is any hacker that tries to break into our network connection, so he cannot, because he similarly cannot decrypt that data. Data stored on storage media could be lost or stolen. Yes, it can save your data. Your data will not be stored. And just in case, even if it is lost or stored, it is not going to be meaningful. So you don't need to worry about that. The purpose of encryption is to make the data difficult or impossible to read. Purpose of encryption is to make your data difficult or impossible to read or access. So this is the purpose of that. Data safe from unauthorized access, which means that no one is able to access your data. So accessing encrypting data is known as the process of decryption. Okay, so now let's move on. So when it comes to your encryption, you have two important areas. The first area is to encrypt it, and the second area is to decrypt it. And encryption is the first phase. This is done when you are sending information. That means that you are scrambling it or you are changing it. Then decryption is the second phase. This is dependent on your receiver. That means that when the file is received by on your receiver's end, he is going to decrypt that. Decrypt means converting your file into on its original state. Converting file back to original state. That means that decryption is done on your receiver's end. And last but not least, this is what it is known to be as encryption, that it's scrambling data, so it cannot be understood without a decryption key, without a password. Encryption is scrambling data, so it cannot be understood without a decryption key. Decryption key is basically an example of a password. Like decryption key is an example of a password that is going to be sent from your encryptor's end. Only the person who has that password can decrypt it back, can convert it back. So do you have any confusions or queries in this encryption area?
No, sir.
Have you studied this previously, or you are studying it for the first time?
I've studied it in school.
Studied it already.
Yeah.
Okay, so